I'm super excited to be here and hear everyone's pitches and presentations. Our MMFI is a nonprofit organization that caters to the whole entrepreneur, from education all the way to the financial aspect. We're always looking for mentors and volunteers as well for the program, as well as entrepreneurs. I have my business cards on the table there if you're interested in volunteering for our next cohort that is starting next week, or next month, sorry. And while I'm also new to the organization, I also went through the program myself as an entrepreneur. So I'm the owner of Creative Kids TV, which is a virtual journalism program for high schoolers, where I teach them how to interview, research, network, build their online and community presence within their respective communities. And our vision basically is changing the narrative from being influenced to being influenced. Once again, if you would like more information or want to just know more about the organization or myself, you can reach me at one of my cards on the table. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Wow, yeah, that felt like it needed a round of applause. We appreciate you guys being here. I hear time and time again from startups and entrepreneurs, I can't find funding, I'm bootstrapping. No more excuses. There are resources all over the Denver area, so just give us a shout out, we can help you find those. So we always like to ask these two questions. Who is new to 1 Million Cups? All righty. Who considers themselves an entrepreneur? All right, everybody, cool. So I wanted to do a couple audience introductions. We'll try to do like 2 or 3, and then always later on we can catch up. So any volunteers, name what you do while you're here.
I can start since this is my first one.
Yes.
So hi, I am Soumya, and this is my first 1 Million Cup session that I happen to visit the enterprise. I actually work out of the enterprise Greenwood Village office, but I come here sometimes. I have a startup, I used to have a corporate career in technology consulting for 20 years, and then I just started my own startup, Septum Capital. It's more about finance and tech and algos.
Very cool. Welcome. All right. Who else?
Hi everyone, I'm Julie Jackson. Also an entrepreneur here. I created a grassroots data collection app for regenerative. For regenerative farmers.
Cool kind of farmers. All right, one more. Who else is new and would like to introduce themselves? You've been chosen.
And I'm new to Denver. I just want to tell I'm new, and I'm in management of a clean beauty company out of Southern California. The woman who started this company is now in Congress, and because of this company, she has changed the laws here in the time since 1938, cleaning up everything because government programs, because of the department. So he's brought me up here to do that. That's here to tell me. I'm not here to just to get feedback on how people. I'll just keep that.
There you go. Thanks for having me. This is a great place to be. We will meet a lot of friends. Last introduction is our honorary mascot. His name's Whiskey. Whiskey is here because he's a therapy dog, and so his whole job is just to be pet. So if you like dogs or you just need a little bit of animal contact today, feel free to come pet Whiskey. All right, the reason that we do all of this is for a great impact. We want entrepreneurs to be able to be open and transparent, to get feedback, improve their startups, and build meaningful connections, because those were the problems, so we are the solution. Remember that the presenters are here for your feedback, so be taking notes and paying attention while they're presenting. And then the goal for everybody here is to give them positive, constructive, and then helpful questions for support, analysis, or growth. We found out last week that one of the main reasons that startups don't make it is because of the wrong timing. Another big reason is that no one actually wants their product. There was one called like rentasnake.com, and everyone was like, we don't need that. That is not necessary. So it's okay, but we do ask that anyone in the audience try to position your feedback in a positive way. It's scary as heck to get up here and present an idea. This, for a lot of people, is the first time they've ever told anyone besides their mom what they're doing. So we want to be gentle and kind with our entrepreneurs so that they'll come back and present as they further improve themselves. All right, with that, you get to stop listening to me and listen to our first presenter, Corbin, standing here at my right. He's with Diversity Consortium. Diversity Consortium was started to overcome decades of sluggish supplier diversity growth by enhanced visibility to vetted XPEs. Somebody used a thesaurus. I like it. Incorporating sustainable supplier improvements and mitigating COVID-19 supplier impact and social justice issues. With that, round of applause for Corbin. Right, we're gonna get it all set up now. And we're gonna have no tech issues today.
Good morning. As she introduced, my name is Corbin Bell, here on behalf of the Diversity Consortium. Before I get started, they asked me to bring 3 asks for you guys in this community. I'm going to go through those and then we'll cover them at the end and we can discuss if that works. So really, what are the challenges you all have experienced, either small business, diverse business, when trying to scale or win corporate customers and contracts? What are ways this community sees to connect with XPEs? And I'll explain that for a second. So if you're familiar with the government term of diverse business enterprises, they have put programs together to allocate funds for women-owned, veteran-owned, minority-owned businesses to get contracts. In that, we saw that there were a couple of groups that were not included. LGBTQ, and some other minority businesses. So we coined the term XPEs just to make sure we're talking about all of those groups and not just a couple of them. So really ways that we can connect. We use Databases Connect. I guess I'm interested in any councils or groups you guys are a part of, that have small businesses or diverse businesses. And then as I get into our value proposition, it is pretty broad. We do a lot of things. So just interested in your feedback of how that's delivered. I think what we've seen as we've gone to a couple customers is we get your cause, we get what you do, but how do we really engage with you? So I'm interested in that piece. So the DC, the Diversity Consortium, the mission statement here is just to make a true measurable difference in the supplier diversity landscape. That's providing a return on investment for the corporations and the XPE organizations while improving the communities in which they live, work, and play. The DC here, it's made up of about 25 service partners or consulting firms. In that, we have about 300 years of experience collectively in the diversity world. So we are pretty new, but the companies inside it have been around a while. More than 70% of those are certified minority or small business. And then we have about 17 years of in business across those 25 companies. We provide about 500 plus service lines. So as we try to be a one-stop shop for corporations or small businesses, that kind of cascades down to a lot of things that we can do. Had 1,000 plus corporate customers and XPEs that we've certified, developed, and helped build programs around their supplier diversity programs. A couple hundred staff members as we kind of pull all those companies together. This next piece is we've got about $2 billion in funding for minority and small businesses that we've allocated, so helping them scale and grow and go get corporate customers. These are our service lines. I'm not going to run through all of them, but I'm going to probably touch on a couple on the corporate side and a couple on the XPE side, just as ones that we've seen probably pull to the top as we've started working with customers. So the strategy and program management, this has been key. A lot of corporate customers are just putting in departments around supplier diversity. Right, 2020 was tough on their supply chain. We saw a lot of social injustice issues that made people turn to the diversity side and focus on it. So we help them write them or recalibrate what they have today. I think the next piece is visualizing that. So we do a lot of baselining, right? Where are you today in your spend with minority companies or diverse companies? And that gives them the visualization to go and grow and be able to track their progress. The last piece on the corporate side is the optimization. And so a lot of these departments, they're under-resourced, underfunded, right? They got started in the middle of COVID, so they didn't get a big budget to work with. A lot of them are 1 or 2 people shops, right? So this optimization piece is going and finding savings in their organization. And our service partner that does that gives some of their revenue back to that department to be able to grow and have the funding that they need to make an impact, right? Hard to do things with no money and no people. On the XBE side, the biggest things are mentoring, coaching, financial support. Like I said, having that capital allocation is big, especially people coming out of COVID, maybe took on some debt to stay alive. So how can they consolidate that and move forward? And the other thing is the Diversity Consortium University. So this is about 200 online courses that they can go and take. How ready am I to go get a corporate contract? Take some courses to prepare themselves to do that. And the last thing is this XBE health plan. And it's really, as you guys know, health benefits in general are a burden to companies, right? And this is a direct primary care model. So it gives them 24/7 access to a primary care physician that they can go and see either virtually or in person. It's $100 per employee or $150 for the family, right? So reducing the cost on the employer, right? And letting them retain talent or get the talent that would have left otherwise, because benefits are a big piece as you're looking to go get a new job. So we tie that around with some other services. We actually just announced yesterday a partnership with Aflac. So they do like our major medical and some other insurances that employers can go and wrap around this XB health plan to give them, a good benefits package that entices them to come in and work for them. This customer journey really was created as we were talking to corporate customers and XBEs. We do offer a lot of services, right? So how do we take them along this journey and not necessarily selling all 500 of our service lines, but this is how we can come alongside you, assess what you have going on, plan and go and execute on those things. So we found it easier to just get into discussion with people and hopefully help them understand the ways that we can help. I'm going to walk you through a couple use cases real quick. Yeah.
We're at 6 minutes, so if you just want
Got it.
to jump to the ending and get to some feedback.
Yep, that's fine. My 3S. So I guess with these questions up here, does anyone want to throw out any experiences they had or the challenges when they were trying to scale a company or win corporate contracts?
All right, well, first round of applause. Sorry, I know I cut you off there. Like I said, this is scary, man. Get up here and talk, and then especially when you rehearse at home and you talk faster or slower, and you get up and you're like, this is totally different. So what kind of feedback? I think the biggest question is, do you understand? Is there any other feedback you'd like to have from everybody? You leave those questions.
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Then I'll just call on people to make sure everybody gets a chance.
Yeah. So great presentation. I really liked the mission that you guys are pursuing. One of the things from the feasibility standpoint that was really loud to me, and I know that I am visually impaired, is I couldn't read a lot of your slides. The text was really small. There wasn't a sufficient contrast with the color of the text in the background. And so I was really struggling to keep up with what you were saying, even though I was really interested, but I couldn't read. I'm a visual person. I have to really read what they're saying for me to absorb it. And that's just a me thing. But I think for the next time you present this, if you can work with a higher contrast ratio from the text, maybe make it bigger, maybe slightly less text, I think that would help people follow along with what you're talking about.
Perfect.
appreciate what you do, and I think it's like there's so much opportunity for like the passion that you have and the passion that started the organization. And I got kind of lost in the minutia of like, ooh, well, then there's this thing and this thing. So I'm curious about what it might look like to have like create a storyline for yourself. Or the organization that was something that made you feel passionate about what's happening. Because it took me a couple of slides to really get into like, oh, this is cool. I do cool stuff like this, like these are the things and stuff. So there was a lot of content that I think was really could be really helpful. And for me, oftentimes that storyline really shifts from community to community. So what it is that you really wanted us to derive out of the presentation, or what you would want a funder, or what you want a potential customer, or client, potential community member, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Cool. Who else?
Oh, kind of same thing with me. I think you offer so many different services. It's like how you get companies or how you get your clients from point A to point whatever. I would maybe take like a success story, or like kind of roll it up into one example. Because like if you have so many different skills, sometimes it's really hard to get like out of the weeds on those things. But if you're like, look, we help companies completely like fundamentally change their business so they go from no revenue or no funding or something very clear. And then you can always go into those like deeper services later, but just give us one impactful, like, hey, we completely help this person transform their business. And then it's like,
Yeah.
great work.
Amazing thing. I've got some ideas we'll talk about later, but the main thought I had was maybe making two different slide decks, one for the corporate side and one for the XDEs, because I got a little lost in learning both sides at once.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, okay, here's my focus on this is what I'm educating people how to be the corporate side, and you can drop in the perks at some of the perks, but then kind of having those two different focuses. It's too much, I think, to put into one.
That's not the first time we've got that feedback, so thank you. Yeah, we're trying to work on it.
How large is the organization?
Say it again.
How large is the organization?
We have about 10 people that work inside the DC, and then we leverage and resource off of the 25 service partners inside of it.
Because I thought about like the service lines, so doing 25 days, what you said, like it seems to me like a lot, really a lot. Like companies really struggle to do one thing or two things, and like you are saying that hey, we're doing 25 days. So my picture is like, oh, this is almost SAP 500 company where you guys are thousands. Yeah. If you're doing like a really different level of documented things, even though like you have those skills, like I was just saying, when I'm doing solely problem ABC, I'm solving 3 problems, and that's it. Yeah, so just simplify it. Not so that much of people.
Yeah, it's cool. Great presentation, love the concept of everything, and kind of piggybacking off kind of providing the coloring of the presentation. And then just really more for me, just your vocal diction and basically the variety within that, maybe just interjecting a little bit more of the personality. Bring it up a little bit, maybe go to the screen, points, whatever that looks like for that presentation. But great job.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, I really like the organization of the presentation. It felt like you kind of hit on what you guys do really well. And you kind of have one slide in there, which is like the customer journey. And maybe getting to like the second question that you have up here is like, how do these companies engage, or how do you engage those companies? It's like building that story more in terms of like, what should they be, how should they be approaching you, or like how do they get started? Kind of maybe more on like the onboarding side, and some of that could be kind of the success stories of just saying like, oh, they approached us with this problem, we solved it, and these were the value adds, you know. So I feel like as a company, like I wouldn't know how to approach you guys.
Good feedback.
I think to Andrew's point, it's going to come in with your referrals, which is ultimately your best business building model. If one of my friends is complaining to me about something they say should trigger me to say, oh, you gotta talk to Corbin. And as of right now, any problem that anyone said, I'd be like, you might could talk to Corbin. I don't even know if he could do that, but maybe. It was a long list. He does a lot of things. So if you want that direct connection and for somebody to be able to give you that, that's that. I think use cases, you mentioned that there's a very clear problem. And that can be started even at the beginning of the presentation with, have you ever known someone who struggled with this? I am the fix. And now everyone's thinking of that person and understanding it a little bit more as you build the presentation out. Cool, let's do one more. Yeah.
How can the XPs approach you and get involved?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way is, we get a lot of people reaching out through LinkedIn. That's really our main avenue of getting to these companies. We do a lot of email campaigns just as an education, right? Hey, we are here as this resource. We can do a lot of things for you, but then we try to kind of point solution off of those, right? So if you need financing, we can help. If you need mentoring and coaching, or being able to assess your company in terms of readiness, I think we're still trying to figure that out. We've gotten in front of a handful of corporate customers. Getting in front of the XPEs are harder. Right, a lot more out there, not as easy to find, right? Not in databases or not as much on LinkedIn, right? So I think we struggle with it a little bit.
You should talk to Allie. She helps with narrowing the focus.
Good.
It's the one in the purple. All right, cool. Last question for you is, what can we as a community do for you? I know we had your asks, but is there anything else specifically, like if you had one introduction or one meeting that you could take this week, somebody in this room might know somebody, what would that be?
Yeah, I think it's just you guys knowing what we do. Obviously, there's a lot that we do, right? So maybe trying to communicate that in ways that you guys can go communicate with people that do come across it, maybe trying to find funding or mentoring and coaching, that type of stuff. We're really out there as a resource. We brought up with a lot of small business development councils, a lot of the cities, really just as an extension to them. So that's what I would ask of you, is just think of us when people are struggling or trying to grow.
Anybody know someone struggling? Perfect. All right, cool. We've got a room full of referrals for you. All right, thank you so much. All right, 7th inning stretch here. We're halfway through. Our next presenter is Erin. Erin is coming to us on Zoom, so we may have to sort out some technical things. She is with Coco Care. Coco Care is a healthcare company on a mission to improve the transitional care experience. We are a digital platform for education, data-driven facility recommendations, and support from a community of patients and families learning together. So a round of applause for Erin. All right, Erin, let's see if we can hear you.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Got you.
Okay. All right. And can you see my presentation?
Yep.
Okay. So Coco Care is really, really early on in the stages of development here. And I want to thank Courtney and Nick for inviting me to present to this community. I'm really excited to be here presenting to 1 Million Cups today about Coco Care. I have two asks for the community. One is, I want you to think about your connections to relevant stakeholders for this company. And I would love it if you could connect me with people who I can talk to for discovery interviews as soon as possible. Also, I'm not really connected to this name, and my husband thinks it's terrible. So when Courtney said that, the presenters are sharing this for the first time with anyone other than their mom, this is the first time I shared it with anyone other than my husband. And he really wants this whole thing to change, or the whole name to change. So if anybody has any ideas, I would love to just sit and have a cup of coffee. So there are 3 problems that Coco Care is aiming to solve. And everybody can hear me okay? Yes. Yeah, okay. So I don't know if anybody has been through this experience before, so I want to walk you guys through really quick. I want you to imagine for a moment that you're at work and you receive a phone call that your husband is in the hospital, or your mom is in the hospital, your best friend is in the hospital, they've had a stroke. What do you do? I mean, my parents live in Illinois, so I'd have to get all the way to Illinois to help out, or I have to leave work that day. You have to go pick your kids up from school. Stop your life for a minute to go and help them. So you get to the hospital and you're told that you have 3 days to choose a rehab facility for your loved one. You're given a huge list of facilities in the community. You don't really know what you're doing, but you have 3 days and you have to pick. How do you choose where they go next? What's the most important thing on your plate for choosing where they go? Now, if it's a severe stroke, do I bring my parents back to Colorado or do I leave them in Illinois? I don't have any family in Illinois. So I could leave them in Illinois at a facility and come back to Colorado and try to live my life while they're going through this. So finally, this person who you're helping ends up at a rehab facility where they're supposed to get help, supposed to go back home. But let's say that their stroke is so severe that it turns out this person is not getting better. They can't walk, they can't speak, and they're probably not going to get better at this point. So now insurance calls you one day and says they've been cut off. Now you have 3 days to find a place for this person to live forever. You can either find a facility for them, you can take them home with you, or they can go home to their own house, but they can't speak and they can't walk. So what do you do? How do you even begin to make this choice for your loved one? These are the problems that CocoCare is hoping to solve. So the problems that I see, I've worked for over a decade in long-term care and working with families as they go through these horrific decisions they have to make in a very short period of time, are lack of information about the process, lack of time to make a good choice, and lack of resources to understand how to choose between different options. So CocoCare is working to help patients and families, but also to help workers at these care facilities, because a smooth process transitioning from one healthcare facility to another is less stressful for everybody involved. The value proposition of CocoCare is a digital platform to support patients and families finding themselves in this tragic and very unexpected situation, as well as healthcare teams who serve families in these stressful times. So the application is, the idea that I have is for CocoCare to be free for hospital discharge planners and free for patients and families. So it'll be an informational tool for those groups of people. With a yearly paid subscription for rehab facilities and long-term care settings. The paid subscription will also include workflow and in-house communication features to reduce administrative burden and improve discharge planning efficiencies, just make the process a lot better for everybody by improving communication. The value of CocoCare is reducing miscommunication, confusion, anger, and stress. Anyone who has worked in long-term care or has worked in a rehab facility, has worked in a hospital, knows how stressful these days can be. So really the product of CocoCare, and where I got the name for CocoCare, is that I want to develop a collaborative community where everybody is pitching in and helping out and people understand the process. I have a loose early timeline for business development. So I'm starting discovery interviews right now, hoping to get to a point where I can have a pilot out towards the end of next fall. I've talked to a couple executive directors of senior living facilities in Colorado Springs, where I live, and there's some interest if we can get a website off the ground. So, CocoCare it's a small piece of a really big change that we need in healthcare. So the mission of CocoCare is really not just to develop a digital tool to connect people. I don't know if anyone here works in healthcare, but COVID-19 was really, really hard on healthcare workers and on people going through this process in the last couple of years. It revealed a lot of flaws in healthcare, and a group of people who were forgotten were the elderly. So more people who live in senior care facilities died from the effects of isolation than they did from contracting COVID-19. So as we dig deeper and we're looking into the flaws in the healthcare system, I just keep coming back to this giant wicked problem of culture and our lack of attention and care that we give to our aging neighbors. So I want to share a story really quick. I think I have time. Courtney, do I have a minute?
You can have a minute. But
Okay, I'll take a minute. So in 2006, I was traveling in China, and I went with a group of high school students to a village where I met a woman who was 100 years old, and she lived alone in a house in this village. She was 100 years old. She couldn't walk and she couldn't see, but she lived alone in this, without electricity, in this house in this village. And I asked the high school students who I was traveling with who took care of this woman, because it just, it seemed like she was probably not making a go of it on her own. So one of the students I was with told me, he said, "We do." And I thought that that was odd, since these high school students lived an hour away from this village. And so I questioned them again, and I said, there's no way that, you group of high school students who lives an hour away from this woman are taking care of her. And I asked them again, and they said, "We do. We all do. We all care for her." And this is the mission of Coco Care overall. This is what I would like to bring to Colorado Springs, to El Paso County, to Colorado, is a culture of elder care awareness to build intentional intergenerational communities, so that it's not such a shock when you're asked to find a long-term care facility for someone you care about, because we would already know and love that part of our neighborhood. I've worked in long-term care for a very long time, and when I'm in a city I'm not familiar with, I can see skilled rehab facilities. I see them as I drive around. There's one, there's one, there's one. I know what they look like. I know what they feel like. And looking at the outside, I have an idea of what it looks like on the inside. So that's what I want from Coco Care, is to build this new community to support people, support elderly people in our communities. I want us all to know and be familiar with senior living facilities, and I want the care in senior living facilities to be excellent, because we should all demand it of each other, and we should all demand it for each other, because I should have written the statistics down. If you and I do not end up in a long-term care facility, we're going to know someone who does, and I want it to be a positive experience for everybody. So again, my ask really quick is, I would like to be connected with the people who the discharge planners. If anyone in your life has been through this experience, I would love to talk to them and ask them some questions about ways that it could have been better. And if anyone has any ideas about my name, that'd be great. Thank you.
Cool. All right. So this is our camera and our microphone. So for our online presenters, we're gonna have you come up, and you guys can just stand in a line. Anyone who wants to give feedback, we'll burn through it. Sound good? So it's hot. The floor is lava. Oh, great.
So my name is Ian. I really like the idea. I think a good way to explain it is being like a doula for long-term care, making that decision. Because like I know when we had our kid, like there's so many options, but like you don't know what's best. You don't really trust some of the people in the hospital, and you need somebody to limit 1,000 options down to, all right, here are the 5 best for you, knowing your criteria. And that actually is needs a personal touch, which I think maybe if you build a website and everything, but that's still might not be great for people, because half the thing is getting that personal touch and getting people on board with it, and earning having somebody talk to, they can bounce questions off of, and probably a lot of the same questions over and over again, because it's repeated for families, and get all that figured out. So it may be considered all right, partner with the long-term care facility, but have a person be at the location that here, this is the person to talk to about your next steps, and they're free, they're paid for by the firm, and they'll guide you through all your options, and work based on you live in Colorado, but Illinois, you don't have the ability to travel that much back home. We anticipate rehab being 6 weeks or whatever. So here are your options for this, and here, and so somebody who needs this if somebody's giving me a spreadsheet of like what my options were for me, my wife, or my birth, that wouldn't be that helpful because I have no idea what I'm talking about, right? Because I'm still uninformed. So it's one way, like, I don't know if like the website would be at that helpful, like the best value add, having people around that could be that point of contact, whether it's through Zoom or in person, that could handle all the paperwork for you, handle all the searching, and then figure out the best course for you or give you the best options.
Okay, thank you.
Hi there, my name's Sam. So first off, I wanted to note that your problem in the story, kind of walking us through, like, have you been in this situation, where this happens, and then you're like, I don't know what to do next, which absolutely perfect. Great, great presentation that kind of started off. I really felt like I identified with that. I have a grandma who's about 92, and we had to make that choice for her. And it was difficult, but thankfully, the area that she was in had a lot of family, so they're able to take care of her in her own home and make her comfortable. But had that not been an option, we probably would have been in that same situation, like, what do we do? So I think that was really great. Your problem was very clear, and I could easily identify with it. One of the things that he kind of touched on is focusing on one target market and how to kind of reach it and the way that they want to be reached. I do really think that they would want a personal touch, more like a concierge service of, hey, you're in this position, here, let me help guide you through it, as opposed to, bam, here's your answer, and like, let you decide it. Because I think that personal touch, especially in such a extremely personal situation and problem that they're going through with, their family members, I think that can really make the difference between this being like a have to have and a nice option.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Hey.
Hi.
I would partner with like a real brand strategist for your website in January. Because like when I saw your logo in the beginning, I thought it was going to be like a really happy, exciting tea that I substitute my coffee with first or something along those lines. And it was like much more serious than that. And I would partner with like a brand strategist that's maybe worked with like not retirement planning, but funeral planning. And I think if you get that done before you build your website in January, it'll be a lot less costly up front, and you'll be much more prepared to express what you want your website to do for you. So I would do that. And I wouldn't just ask, like, I don't know, that's a shitty thing to say. Like, I wouldn't just ask a group of people what the name should be. I would work with like a real professional brand strategist, because like this is serious, right? You don't want your name to be like, oh, I just asked a crowd of people. At least not for this. Anyway, cheers.
Thank you. That was some feedback that my husband had for me. He said, are you selling crayons to children or are you selling help for adults? So I'm all in for fixing that piece. So thank you.
Hi, I'm PR and great presentation. Loved your passion and definitely love the solution that you are looking to provide. I have a lot of experience in healthcare, especially working with the VA and other establishments, and nobody cares, especially about people that are aging. And so it's almost like they just push them to the side. So I definitely want to piggyback off of everybody else on making that a personable experience, as well as I currently have a friend who is dealing with that with her grandmother, and they have to fly out to St. Louis because her grandmother was in a facility and basically she stopped eating for the last month, hasn't been talking, and so now they're preparing for their funeral services and flying out there to take care of that. So this is definitely a great solution, and definitely piggybacking on the logo as well, because I did think that it was for maybe preschoolers when I first saw it pop up some type of program, but I love the passion and the reason why behind everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey, morning, Aaron. Great presentation. I think you nailed kind of the setup in terms of the problem and kind of the emotional side of it. In terms of telling the story. The part that I was left maybe questioning more or wanted to understand more was maybe more the rational side or the number side. So you talked about the time, the money, the resources, and maybe just hitting on like how much time are people spending, how much money are people spending, what are extra resources are missing, and then kind of wrap that up with a solution side, or sorry, solution slide. or some way to just tie back to that original problem statement to say this will save you X dollars or X amount of time. And it doesn't have to be exact numbers, right? Like you're still in kind of the early phase, but just trying to wrap into some numbers and values to what you're presenting. But yeah,
Okay.
great.
Thank you.
Again, everybody, yeah, great presentation. I think you nailed a problem that exists for a lot of people, especially in this age of information. It's hard to figure out, what do I do? And I'm guessing you maybe went through this experience is why this is. Did you have
No, I mean, I've been through this experience one time, but having worked in it for a very long time, I don't know what we could possibly have done if I was not familiar with the process. So yeah, but I work in long-term care and I see it every day.
Okay, so yeah, my thought was more from the customer point of view, where what that exact emotional state they're in. So I like the idea that they gave kind of having that concierge, because when you're in that trauma, that sudden massive trauma, someone gets a stroke, that's an unexpected thing. So that drops you in your sympathetic nervous system and you're just in fear, you're getting that fight or flight, you can't think, you can't decide. And so having someone who can kind of help you make those decisions, narrow them down, I think that's the best approach for this. If it were just a website, it would just be one more thing to overwhelm me in that state. Just kind of like feeling into where that person's coming from and what do they need. And we can talk more about that if you want.
Yes, please. Please. I would love to.
Hi, Erin. My name is Lindsay. I was thinking about the beauty of what it is that you're creating, right? There's this, to me, as kind of a trite way to say it, but you bring care back into something, an aspect of healthcare that may not have had a whole lot of care. And so rather than, I think we've had the conversation about how, it's a serious thing, but I also think that there's space here for that care component, the part that really feeds your heart. And I think that that's kind of where you were going with the logo, and I would see that like a professional might be a good way to go with the branding and really communicating what it is that you want to communicate. I think in that concept too, almost verbatim in many ways what Kim had said about the opportunity to like hold somebody's hand when they're in the fight or flight, when the system is not quite sure which direction to go. It's kind of like, it's got a lot of a similar feel to almost a hospice environment to me, and it's not quite, of course, but like scaling it back to that particular. When we're talking about the point where somebody makes a really impactful decision to how to meet them there, and being able to meet the other side of that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That's a good point.
I love the vision. And one thing, as you discussed a little bit about product and what your solution is going to be funded by, I wonder if you thought about kind of the incentive structure in which you're providing basically a third-party payer, which would be these places where you would put these people, right? It's like what a lot of people think of this as. So I would worry about the perverse incentives a little bit, that your funding sources from the places where we're providing solutions that exist right now, and they might want to push you in certain directions. Like,
I missed what you said. I didn't hear it. Can you say that again?
Yeah, so I worry a little bit about the perverse incentives of having the third-party payer for the services that you actually want to provide, right? Where it's the homes that generally the elderly are put here, like towards the end of life, that they're funding the whole operation to educate, and notionally this is about advertising. So that's one thing I want to think about, is what services are you providing to those people that you care about, and how could that be potentially corrupted in some way by the people actually put in the bill?
That's a good point.
All right, anybody else have anything real fun? Okay, my last piece of feedback was, I actually didn't understand the solution, and I think it was a story at the end you gave that caused a conflict in me, whether or not you're providing like a resource for people that are going to take care of their parents in like a guidebook way, or if you're trying to cultivate a community that cares for the elderly everywhere. So if you're cultivating a community, I would say you have to incentivize people to participate somehow if it's not culturally inherited. So even like credits, because everyone knows at some point they're also probably gonna have to pay the bill on long-term care. So if you went and cared for elderly and you got credits towards the future care of either yourself or a loved one, that could be kind of a cool thing to do. And that would just build up like goodwill in a very tangible way that would help people monetarily. If you're doing the first thing, which is providing a resource for people that are flying to a state they've never been in and trying to actually weigh their options, I say the branding should be some form of like, oh shit, but change it around. Because if you can connect with how people are really feeling when that happens, you'll be able to actually give them a resource that helps. So the other like more PC version of that would be something like I can't. And that's what I hear when people are in that situation is I can't understand, I can't fathom, I can't process, I can't. But if you made it more of I can. Right now that's a web service thing, so I wouldn't mess with it, but something along those lines for branding. But just a little more clarity in the solution. I think we all are very familiar with the problem, but what you're proposing as a solution has a lot of different roads you could go down, and that's going to be important before you go to the MVP stage. So.
Okay.
Last question for you is what as a community can we do for you? You were great with providing your asks, but after all this feedback, is there anything else, anyone you want to meet with this next week?
Yes. I would like, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Erin Marizella on the planet. It's the only combination of those two names. So I'm easy to find. And I would love it if everybody can find one person in your life who's been through this. One person who's experienced and lived this, either from the patient side or the family side. And I would like the opportunity to speak to them. So the people I have connections to are going through it in real time. And I don't want to ask them to sit down with me at this point. So if anybody, it would be great if everybody here could connect me with one person.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much, Erin. Okay, for all of our newbies, how was that? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah, okay, cool. We'll do it again. Sounds good. Again, we have a section for community announcements and asks. So if you need something or you are doing something and you want people to know about it, now's your moment. Who has anything going on in the community?
I've been going to this meeting that's on Wednesdays, actually. Today's the first day I went. It's on 909 Bannock Street, the 6th floor. It's really cool. It's pretty formal, but there's a lot of good networking to go on in there. Not really. They're really getting after it in there. So it's next Wednesday at 7:15. If anybody wants to go, I'll be there.
So why you're dressed so fancy today?
Oh, so fancy today.
Looking great. Fancy like Applebee's. Thank you for the reaction. That's a good one. Anybody else?
I mean, for my company, Creative Kids TV, I'm always looking for sponsors and donations for our students.
Cool. Yeah, on the sponsorship note, I'm doing a pre-accelerator this fall for startups. It's going to be 6 weeks, and we're going to teach them how to crush opportunities like this. So how to develop a pitch, how to understand value, how to develop an MVP, and all of that. We are looking for expert speakers. So if you want to come and talk about branding or something like that, or MVPs, totally open to that. And then we're also looking for sponsors. So we can keep this program free and take no equity from the participants. We need to raise like around $2,000. So it's nothing too hectic, but if you know someone who would like to be a sponsor and get their name out there, let's talk.
Courtney, where can you find more info about that?
You can find me on Slack. I have been posting about it a little bit in the Colorado startups, like general need help, talent communities and stuff like that, but I'm on there. My name is Courtney. I don't think there are any others. If so, I have a cool picture, so you'll find me. Yeah. All right. So for 1 Million Cups specifically, we are always looking to grow because this room can fit some more chairs. We want to make that happen. So invite your friends, your coworkers to attend. More importantly, to present. As you saw today, we have people at different stages. We've had people that are already getting ready to fund like tomorrow. And it's really exciting for us as a community to participate in the startup process all along the way. So tell people, hey, I know you're nervous, all this other stuff, but if Erin can do it, and she'd only ever talked to her husband about it, I think anybody can. Reminder, you are awesome. Again, we are looking for some more organizers, so if you're interested in that, just come see me afterwards. This was our pop quiz second question of the day. Do you know how many unicorn startups there are in 2022? In 2022, around the whole world, how many startups are worth over $1 billion? Any guesses? 56. 100? 800? No?
1,000.
Okay, okay.
It's like $1.
Oh, 8, okay, cool. So if we go with Price is Right rules, I think you win. There were 39 in 2013. In 2022, there are almost 900 unicorn startups in the world. They are valued at more than 3.5 trillion combined. The number one startup right now is it's a capital group in China. But there are companies like Canva and Instacart and all of those that are up in the unicorn status. So that list is available on HubSpot if anybody's interested. But go figure out what they did, and they did some things right. But the most important thing they did was that they believed in themselves. So we encourage you guys to participate in more events like this, because if you don't think you can do it, you got it. Next meeting is next week. We will see you there, and hope you guys have a freaking awesome day.